Okay. What's that? Say it again. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, we had a couple of people wanting Betsy to come back for the exam on Friday. So I felt like maybe some people were distracted by that too. So I wanted to at least put it up for a vote. So let's do a quick vote on the clickers, okay? So, and don't feel bad either way. I don't care. Betsy's feelings won't be hurt if you don't want her to be here. And mine won't either. So yes, Betsy would be A. No, Betsy would be B, okay? Yes, A. Yes is A. No is B. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah. Anybody else? I just got 46. Anybody else have a Betsy opinion? No, we only got 49 Betsy opinions. Okay. All right, let's see what you guys said. Betsy wins in a landslide victory. All right. All right, I'll do my best to get her to class on Friday. Okay. All right, guys. Just real quick for the lab quizzes, a big week, all about muscles, right? Lots and lots of muscles. You had those lots of muscles last week with the TBL, plus the muscles not covered elsewhere part that you studied for Friday. Muscles today for the TBL, right? Muscles in lab with the cats, okay? So you're just kind of fully immersed in muscles right now. So a lot of exam 4 is muscles, right? Lots of different muscle packets on exam 4. The lab quiz this week is over the cat upper body muscles that you dissected last week, okay? And then also the human lower body muscles, like actual cadaver pictures that you got to see on the cadaver, okay? So those lower body ones, the leg muscles, okay? That's the quiz this week. Again, your best study tool outside of lab is that practice anatomy lab in Master AMP, okay? You have actual cadaver images, you have cat images. You can mouse over those, quiz yourself, but that's definitely the best place to study for these quizzes and for the practical when you're not in lab, okay? All right. There weren't any in particular questions that stood out as a bunch of teams missed them or anything, but were there any questions on the TBL quiz that you wanted me to address? Okay, good. All right, we'll probably get into some of those questions you might have had right here. So we're going to jump into the TBL activities. Yeah, so most of these will have a chance for somebody to vote. So everybody right now decide who's the voter on your team. Okay, we'll have one person per team who's going to raise their hand. Okay. All right, here we go. So let's before we get into some of the questions, I just kind of wanted to review these scapular motions with you guys. Okay, some of these are a little bit tricky, and the best is for you to do them with me. Okay, so let's start with the top left there. So elevation. So elevation is just like shrugging your shoulders, just like you're gonna. That's straight up. Okay, shoulder straight up, and then depression is what happens when you relax. Right, it just goes back down. Right, you can kind of move it further back down, but not much really. Right, it's kind of all the way down when you're just relaxed. Okay. Adduction or adduction, that's like pinching your shoulder blades together, right? So if you were to do like a row, like pulling back and trying to pinch your shoulder blades together, that's adduction, right? Adduction, okay? Abduction or protraction is when you bring your shoulders into adduction, right? Because you're adducting your shoulders, but then your scapula have to kind of rotate around your back, not really rotate, but slide around your back to do that, and that's abduction. Right, and then upward rotation. I'm going to turn around this way. If my two hands were my scapula, when I upwardly rotate, they go like this. Right? When I downwardly rotate, they go like that. So in order to abduct your shoulder above 90 degrees, above right here, then you have to upwardly rotate your scapula too, right? So So this is upward rotation, and then when you come back down, it's downward rotation. So upward, downward, like that, right? And I'll show you a little video in a sec that kind of walks us through that too. Okay. All right, so go ahead. Yeah, I kind of just told you the answer to this one. So which scapular motion must occur to allow full shoulder abduction? Which one? Yeah, upward rotation. Good. Okay. And two important upward rotators are the upper trapezius and the serratus anterior muscles. Okay, and we'll look at some of those muscles and kind of how they have their angle of pull to cause those motions, because that can get a little bit tricky to wrap your head around how they're pulling from different angles on different parts of the scapula to do that. Yeah, give you a sec to finish writing that down, then we'll go to a short video that just kind of shows those scapular motions. Good. Okay. All right, we're gonna have to watch that. We'll have to watch a short ad. Yes. Guess we gotta watch this advertisement. We got a few seconds there. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna start at about 10 seconds in. Okay, yeah, so you just kind of watching there, and you can just really see the way the bones move well with this little video. Yeah. Go. Yeah, so that's it. We don't need to watch the rest of it, but that was pretty much it. Just kind of shows the bones moving clearly there. So pause that. Okay, so let's go to a couple more questions here. Okay, so go ahead and talk about this one with your team, and try to kind of talk about the angle of pull that each muscle might have to help with these motions. So downward rotator, this one's helping with that.
Yeah, but I know those two are not. It's the minor. Oh, it's depression.
Yeah, maybe have one person hold up one muscle, like however many muscles you choose. You got that many people holding up a muscle? Okay, go ahead, hold them up. What do you got? Okay, so we got, yeah, so some people saying 7, we got 7 and, you guys say both say 7? 5 and 7, there you go. Yeah, so we got most teams saying some variation of 2 and 5 and 7, right? So what do we call number 2? Pec minor. What do we call 5? Rhomboids, and then 7 is what? There's scapula. Yeah, so that's good. And so yeah, and I'll kind of show you on the next slide how this works. So the type of exercises that you need to do forceful downward rotation. It's not a super common thing that we do, but definitely any kind of like upward row or pulling down like that, even like a kind of like an angle for like pulling this way and kind of pulling pulling down that way, we're still gonna have to downwardly rotate. Definitely like a dip, you know, when we're doing dips, those types of exercises. Yeah, we can come up with some other stuff too, but yeah, that's a few things. So this is kind of how the pec minor pulls on the scapula to create this motion. It's not necessarily intuitive. But you can see that angle that it takes from the ribs up to the coracoid process, right? And so this is kind of the angle. And so when we do it, it kind of does that motion there, right? So that is creating some downward rotation there, okay? We can also see with the levator scapulae, it has this angle coming off of that most superior medial part of the scapula. As it pulls up at that angle, then it does that type of motion there too, right? And you can kind of see how all of the muscles working together really produces it much better than just one at a time, right? Because they're kind of pulling from opposite angles, kind of making it rotate around an axis, okay? And so we can kind of see that here. This image even adds a couple muscles that we don't have listed in the handout, but yeah, you don't need to know beyond the ones that I had listed underneath the muscles. But this kind of shows how multiple muscles are all pulling at different angles to kind of create this rotation type movement around an axis on the scapula. Okay, questions on any of that? Okay, all right, go ahead.
Oh, but it adds it, you're right.
All right, what do you guys got on this one? Yeah, most teams saying 4 and 5, right? So 4 is what? We call 4? Trapezius, and then 5 and rhomboid. Okay, good. Yeah, absolutely. So definitely any kind of like rowing motion like this was pulling back. Definitely important for swimming where we're grabbing and pulling that water back, right? Yeah, so a couple exercises type of movements that use those types of activities. Okay. All right, so let's talk about stretching a little bit. So again, remember when we stretch a muscle, we need to do the exact opposite of its concentric action. Okay, so think about that one for a second. How would you best stretch your rhomboids? All right, you can hold it up if you're ready. Yeah, good. So most people are saying 4. So you're saying D, right? So full scapular protraction should be out here, right? But then with upward rotation, so up here, right? So those of you that were swimmers maybe in high school or growing up, there's kind of what's called the swimmer stretch, right? You get down on all fours like this. Someone grabs your arm like this and pulls across. The top one isn't showing it with upward rotation, but yeah, those of you that have done this before, you know, you kind of get different parts of it when you do different things. So you can go straight across, and you can do up like that. You can also go down. It kind of just gets the different aspects of the muscle, and it gets your traps a little bit too when you do that. But that's kind of what's called the swimmer stretch. Okay, here we go. Let's do this one. Deltoids. You guys are getting creative. So I used to bring these little whiteboards over, but. All right. So might be tricky to hold this one up, but it sounds like most of you have gotten it. Somebody yell out the order there. What is it? VAC. Yeah. So we got the lateral portion that's going to do abduction. We got the anterior portion that's going to do flexion. And we got the posterior portion that's going to do extension. Right. And yeah, as you saw in the cat, this is 3 different muscles in the cat. Right. Just like the trapezius is 3 different muscles in the cat. In the human, it's just one muscle, but we can just activate different parts of it when we need to. So, yeah. Okay. Any questions on any of that? Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Talk about this. Think about this. Which one do you think here would be the strongest shoulder extensor? All right, hold it up if you're ready. Hold up your hands if you're ready. Yeah, most teams are saying 6, right? And what's 6? Latissimus dorsi, yeah. And this one has one of the broadest origin points in the body, right? Where does it start? Where's the bottom of the origin? You guys remember? Where at? Yeah, like way down by the sacrum, right? And it goes all the way up into, I don't remember off the top of my head, but maybe somebody else does. How high does it go? Almost to the cervical spine, doesn't it? Yeah, C7, yeah, right? So all the way from the bottom of the cervical, through the thoracic, through the lumbar, down to the sacral. It's a bunch of little origin points all along there. So it's big and broad, but then it all comes down into one little point on the front of your humerus, right? So all of that force is transmitted to that one little point on your humerus. So it produces a lot of force for shoulder extension there. Yeah, and that's the latissimus dorsi. Okay. All right, so that's that one. Let's talk about the rotator cuff a little bit. Okay, and you guys can kind of work on these two questions here because they're both related to rotator cuff muscles. So go ahead and start with this one, and then you can also work on the next one on the next slide.
I thought you said cheese.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about this one here first. So when it comes to the first question there, so we're internally rotating, right? But then we got to slow down that internal rotation. So remember, the muscle's eccentric action is just going to be the opposite of its concentric action. So we would have to pick the muscles up here that are external rotators, right? Which ones are the two external rotators? B and D, right? Yeah, so B and D. Okay. And then we're also adducting as we come down, we throw, right? So we would have to pick one that would be an abductor that helps decelerate that motion, right? Which one up there is a abductor? Supraspinatus, good. Okay, and just a correction on that last one on latissimus dorsi, the top of the origin is T7, not C7, okay? And then goes down the sacrum, okay? Sorry, I was trying to do it off the top of my head and I forgot. Okay, and then this one here. So this is just a nice image because it shows the way that those muscles go all the way around the humeral head there. Okay, so which ones do we need to really help cuff the humerus? All of them, absolutely. That's what it's all about, right? So if they're all contracting, then it takes the humeral head and just pulls it into the glenoid fossa, right? It just, they all pull in, and that just, yeah, it's like a cuff, like a cuff, like on the sleeve of a shirt, right? It kind of goes almost all the way around it. Yeah, so that's the idea of the rotator cuff. Okay, let me just talk about these last couple real quick. So which muscle helps with shoulder flexion when it's already extended, but helps with shoulder extension when it's already flexed? You guys have worked with this a couple times already, but just think about the pectoralis major with me, okay? When you're like this, it goes straight across. So that's it's your primary adductor, right? But then if I go back like this, now it's like this, right? So if I'm pulling this way, it's gonna pull me this way a little bit, right? If I'm up like this, then look, now it has this angle of pull. Now it pulls down a little bit, right? And that's just it. So it's gonna flex if I'm up here. It's gonna extend if I'm up here, right? Because it's pulling down. If I'm back here, it's gonna help flex a little bit until it gets to here, and then it doesn't help anymore, right? So many muscles work in that way that their action changes depending on the position that your body's in. That's just kind of one of the most easy ones to visualize, and so that's why I throw that one in there. But, okay. And then, yeah, let's just talk about this one real quick. Best way to stretch the long head of the biceps brachii. We know that it is also the long head is a shoulder extensors because it goes over that back of the shoulder. So we not only have to flex our elbow, but then we have to flex our shoulder as well to stretch it all the way out. That's why people do that stretch there. Okay. And yeah, and then this one with the biceps brachii. This one you can actually see the two heads. That's not normal, but sometimes you can't. So elbow flexion, obviously, but then you don't go like this, right? You don't pronate when you show off your biceps. You supinate, right? Because it's the supinate, right? You get much more. Yeah, you shorten it more when you supinate. Okay, so it would be elbow flexion and supination. Okay, and then lastly, let's do this one. Okay, so 3 types of curls there. So when you're supinated, you just went through that one. That really gets your biceps. Okay, so supinated, we'll do A here. Okay, with your thumb up, also known as hammer curls. That one really makes your brachioradialis pop up, and you can see that in your arm. When you do that, there's a skinny muscle that pops up, right? So that would be B. And then when we turn it over and do a curl like that, that's kind of one of the hardest curls. But that's what we're really kind of isolating our brachialis, doing it that way. So, okay. All right, guys, we did it. Have a good rest of your day. We'll see you on Wednesday.